Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my channel. Tell me, have you ever looked into a woman's eyes, seen her smile, felt that brief flicker of connection, and still felt like she was a mystery you just couldn't solve? Maybe she laughed at your jokes, maybe her body language leaned in, maybe everything felt right, and then she pulled away. Or maybe you've been with someone for years, and somewhere between the routine and the expectations, you can't help but wonder, does she still want me the way she once did? Desire, you see, is not a guarantee. It doesn't come with the wedding ring or the good intentions. It's not something you can earn through checklists or conquer with strategy. It's elusive, mysterious, and yet strikingly human. But what if I told you there are certain questions? Not cheesy pickup lines, not tricks, not tactics, but real vulnerable, disarming questions that touch the part of her that longs to feel seen, chosen, and desired. Questions that bypass the performance and speak directly to the part of her that still wants to be a woman in your eyes. Not just a partner, not just a mother, not just a friend, a woman. In this video, we're going deep, not into how to manipulate her, but how to awaken her. I'll share with you 7 powerful questions that spark desire in women, not because they're provocative, but because they're real. And once you understand why they work, you'll never look at attraction the same way again. You know, when a man reaches his 30s, when the body isn't running on pure adrenaline and ego anymore, when ambition is still burning but has met a few failures and a few silences, something shifts. Relationships stop being just about excitement. They begin to crave depth, authenticity. That elusive connection that makes both people feel more alive. And yet here's the irony: the deeper we go into life, the more afraid we become to ask the questions that truly matter. Desire isn't dead. It's just buried beneath politeness, beneath assumptions, beneath the routines we've all mistaken for love. So many men come to me and say, "Esther, I don't know what happened. We used to have passion. Now she feels distant, cold, like I'm touching her body but not reaching her." And I always ask them, not what they're doing wrong, but what they're not asking. Because women, you see, we don't shut down overnight. We drift slowly, emotionally, spiritually, until one day we're present in body but absent in soul. And when that happens, no amount of charm or effort can reach us, unless you speak to the part of us that still wants to be touched without needing to be fixed. So let's start where it matters. There's a question most men never dare to ask, and yet it is the question that instantly reawakens a woman's inner world. It's not seductive in the way we've been taught. It's not glamorous. It's disarming. What makes you feel beautiful lately? Not "you look beautiful," not a compliment, but an invitation. You see, when you ask this, you're not just admiring her appearance. You're asking her to define it in her own terms. You're asking her to locate her femininity, her sensuality, her presence from inside herself. And that is rare. That is powerful. Because for many women, feeling beautiful isn't about the mirror. It's about being seen. It's about the man who notices the moment she tucks her hair behind her ear when she's nervous, who remembers the way her cheeks flush when she talks about something she's passionate about, who asks not for her body, but for the story behind her glow. And when you ask her what makes her feel beautiful lately, not 10 years ago, not when she was 22, but now, you remind her that her beauty didn't expire, that her sensuality is not a relic of youth, but a living, breathing part of her, one that maybe she forgot, but you haven't. And something shifts, she softens. Her eyes light up. Maybe she says, "When I dance alone in the kitchen," or "when I wear that silk dress, even if no one sees me." Maybe she says, "When I laugh so hard I forget to care." And now, my dear, you're not just having a conversation. You're witnessing her. You're meeting her in a place where attraction begins, not in fantasy, but in truth. That's the first doorway. And when it opens, you step into intimacy without needing to touch her. You become the man who sees what others overlook. And that's magnetic. Let's go a little deeper. There's another question that carries a charge, but it doesn't sound seductive on the surface. It sounds curious, gentle, even innocent, but it holds within it the potential to break walls. When do you feel most desired? Now pause. Let her breathe into that. Most men are so busy wanting their woman that they forget to understand what makes her feel wanted. You see, we think desire is one size fits all. Touch her this way, say that thing, light the candles and voil. But real attraction is psychological, emotional. It's tied to how we perceive ourselves in the presence of another. So when you ask her, when do you feel most desired? You're really asking, when do you feel alive in your own skin? When do you stop apologizing for taking up space? When do you forget to shrink and instead allow yourself to be radiant? Some women will tell you, "When I'm dancing." So some will say, "When you look at me across the room like I'm the only one there." Others might surprise you, "When I'm talking about something I love," and you're actually listening. And sometimes there will be silence, because no one's asked her that in years. Let that sink in. Sometimes the most powerful act of attraction is not pursuit, it's permission. Permission for her to exist fully, wildly, unapologetically, to feel wanted not for who she tries to be, but for who she is. And here's the truth: the men who can hold space for that kind of vulnerability, the ones who ask not just what she likes in bed, but what ignites her soul, Those are the men women remember. Desire isn't about being unforgettable in the bedroom. It's about being undeniable in her mind. And so, when you ask her what makes her feel beautiful and when she feels most desired, you're doing something rare in today's world. You're not just building attraction. You're creating resonance, safety, depth. You're reminding her that being wanted isn't the same as being used. That attraction isn't something she has to perform. It's something she gets to experience with you. And this, my friend, is the beginning of a new dance. One that doesn't follow the outdated rhythm of control and conquest. One that moves to the beat of mutual discovery. Because the truth is, when a woman feels safe to reveal who she is, when she feels seen without having to shout, felt without having to explain, her desire doesn't just return, it burns. And from here, we go deeper, not by changing her, but by knowing which door to knock on next. There is something sacred that happens when a woman feels that a man is curious about her, not just her history or her opinions, but her inner weather, her longings, her contradictions, the places she hides even from herself. And most men never go there, not because they don't care, but because they were never taught how. You were probably taught to solve, to protect, to lead, but not to inquire into the soul of the woman beside you. So let me offer you a third question, one that doesn't just spark attraction, it cultivates trust, mystery, and vulnerability in equal measure. What's something you've always wanted to do, but haven't yet? This is not about bucket lists or bucket seats. It's not a checklist for vacation planning. This is a gateway, a portal into the dreams she's buried under responsibility, the desires she might have deemed silly or impractical or out of reach. The version of herself she once imagined before life asked her to be everything for everyone. And when you ask this question, you're not just being romantic, you're being revolutionary. Because you're saying to her, I see you as someone who still gets to dream. I see you as someone whose future is not behind her but ahead. And perhaps no one has ever said that to her in that way before. She may say, I've always wanted to learn Italian and just disappear in Florence for a month. Or maybe she confesses, I wanted to act before I had kids. Before I convinced myself it was too late. Or maybe her answer will surprise even her. Something fragile and unfinished, like, I've always wanted to feel wild again. And now you're not just talking. You're holding space for something sacred. The breath between who she is and who she wants to be. And it's in that space that desire begins to stir. Not just sexual desire, but the desire to be fully alive. To be near someone who doesn't reduce her, who doesn't fix her, but invites her to step back into her own fire. Do you see? You are becoming the kind of man who doesn't chase women. He awakens them. And there's more. Because now that she has shared a dream, now that she's remembered a part of herself she may have tucked away, this is the moment when you go even deeper. This is the moment to gently touch the edge of intimacy without rushing to claim it. You say, what scares you about being fully seen? This question is like a key, and you must hold it gently with reverence. Because if you ask this too soon, or if you ask it with an agenda, she'll recall. But if you've created trust, if you've shown her that you're not afraid of her depth, she will open. And when she opens, you will witness a kind of beauty that transcends attraction. You will meet the woman behind the woman, the little girl who learned to smile so she wouldn't be judged, the teenager who decided ambition was safer than vulnerability, the adult who got used to being needed but not chosen. She may say, I'm afraid that if someone really sees me, they'll realize I'm not enough. Or, I'm afraid of being judged for how intense I can be. Or maybe, I've spent so long being who I thought I should be, I don't even know who I am when no one's watching. And you don't flinch, you don't try to fix it or reassure her, you just witness her. You say, thank you for sharing that with me. You let her see that you can hold her truth without shrinking. That her fear doesn't make her less attractive, it makes her human. And suddenly, the tension between you becomes something new, something sacred. Because now, she's not just with a man, she's with someone who holds space like a mirror, not a microscope. This is where eroticism begins, not with sex, but with risk, with vulnerability, with the courage to be seen, and the grace to stay. And if you've made it this far with her, with curiosity, with presence, with patience, you've done something few men ever do. You've created a space where her walls don't need to be broken because they lower themselves. And you're not manipulating her. You're not pretending. You're simply asking the questions that no one else dares to ask. The ones that require you to slow down, to listen, to honor the parts of her that are still waiting to be met. It's not always sexy at first, but it becomes sexy in the way she looks at you when no one's around, in the way her voice softens when she speaks your name, in the way her body finds yours not out of obligation, but out of deep magnetic pull. Because when a woman feels emotionally safe, she becomes physically free. And here is where so many men get it wrong. They chase the performance of desire, the heels, the lipstick, the fantasy. But they forget the most desirable woman is the one who feels desirable, who feels seen. And that only happens when you become the man who asks her not what she's wearing, but what she's carrying. Not just what she wants in bed, but what she feels in silence. Now the attraction is no longer physical, it's existential. She doesn't just want your hands, she wants your attention, your presence, your mind. That is where the heat begins to rise. And if you stay in this space long enough, without rushing, without trying to impress her, you will witness something rare. You'll see her light up, not just because of you, but because of who she becomes when she's with you. And that is what makes her crave you. Not because you complete her, but because you awaken her. This is not seduction, it is connection. This is not control, it is invitation. And now you are ready to ask the next question, the one that doesn't just create attraction, it builds a bridge between her story and yours. There's a kind of magic that unfolds when you begin to see a woman not just as a partner, not as a role, but as a story, a novel still being written. And every question you ask, if asked with sincerity, becomes a sentence that adds to her pages. Attraction is not a moment, it's a narrative. It builds chapter by chapter when presence meets curiosity. So now that she's opened the door, now that she's shared her dreams, her fears, her hesitations about being seen, this is where you invite her into the kind of connection that doesn't just flirt, but fuses. You lean in and say, what part of yourself do you miss the most? This question, it's tender and bold, and it might make her go quiet, just for a moment. Because for many women, the parts of themselves they miss, the playful one, the reckless one, the sensual one, the unapologetically selfish one, were not taken by force. They were traded slowly for approval, for safety, for responsibility, for love, and often they didn't even realize it happened. So when you ask her this, you're not dredging up regret, you're inviting remembrance. You're saying, I want to know the parts of you the world made you put away, the ones you still long for. She might smile wistfully and say, I miss the girl who would sing out loud in the car with the windows down. Or, I miss how fearless I was in my 20s when I didn't overthink everything. Or maybe, I miss how much I used to laugh without censoring myself. And now, pay attention, you're seeing her desire in its most vulnerable form. Desire not just for touch, but for self, for wholeness, for reclamation. And your presence in that moment, your ability to hold her nostalgia without trying to cheer her up or redirect it, that's what makes you different. Because when you see a woman not as broken but as layered, not as someone to fix but someone to understand, you become the man she doesn't just want to be with, she wants to be around. Now you're not just the man in her life, you are the man who gives her back to herself. And from this space of trust, of safety, of inner revelation, this is where we bring in the next question. A question that doesn't just touch her past or her fantasies, but her now. What kind of love do you crave but are afraid to ask for? There's a silence that falls when this question is asked. A beautiful, aching silence, because most people don't even know how to answer it, let alone admit it. We're taught to settle, to be grateful, to not need too much, to not want too loudly. But beneath that conditioning, beneath the pride and the performance lives a quiet longing for a kind of love that sees us in ways no one ever has, for the kind of intimacy that doesn't just accept us, but expands us. And when you ask a woman this question, you're giving her a gift most never received, permission to want more. She may say, I crave a love where I don't have to carry everything, where I can fall apart and still feel safe. Or I crave a love where I'm adored, not just respected. Or I crave a love where I'm not just useful, but worshipped, even if only in moments. Let that land. Because now you're not in the realm of surface attraction anymore. You're in the deep ocean, the place where desire is forged, not in flesh, but in recognition. And if she cries, let her. If she hesitates, be patient. You are now meeting her where it matters most, not in her roles, not in her appearances, but in her truth. And that, my dear, is erotic in its rawest form. When a woman feels safe enough to share the kind of love she craves and sees that you are not afraid of it, you become unforgettable. Not because you gave her everything she wanted, but because you ask. And when you ask with your full presence, with no defense or agenda, something sacred unfolds. She softens, she leans in, and she desires you, not for your power or your performance, but for your depth. And here's the paradox, the more you hold space for her longing, the more she wants you, because you've proven that desire doesn't just live in chemistry, it lives in courage. And so, attraction now becomes transformation. You are not pulling her toward you, you are walking with her through the terrain of her own soul. There is one final question I want to give you, and it is the most disarming of all. A question that comes not from the lover, not from the seducer, but from the witness, from the man who no longer fears closeness, from the man who knows that real intimacy begins where performance ends. But I'll take a breath here, because by now you're not just listening, you're feeling. You're remembering the women in your life, past, present, or perhaps one waiting just ahead, who long to be seen this way. And maybe, just maybe, you're beginning to realize you have always had the power to awaken desire. Not through bravado, but through presence. And the next words you speak could become the moment she remembers for years. There comes a moment in every connection, whether it's blooming for the first time or rebuilding from the wreckage of routine, where words stop being just words. They become invitations to slow down, to come closer, to be known. You've already taken her into sacred terrain. You've asked her what makes her feel beautiful, when she feels most desired, what she misses, what she dreams about, what kind of love she craves. And now you're standing at the threshold of her trust. This is where you ask the question that most people never hear. The one that doesn't try to understand her or explore her, it simply honors her. When do you feel most like yourself? Let that linger, because this isn't a question about comfort zones. It's a question about truth. It's about identity. Not the one she presents to the world, not the one she's learned to wear like armor, but the one that whispers to her when the house is quiet, the makeup is off, the phone is down, and no one needs her. This is the woman who existed before the world told her who to be. She may say, when I'm reading alone with a glass of wine, or when I'm barefoot in nature, disconnected from everything, or even when I'm making love and I forget to perform. These answers are not just insights, they are invitations, because now she's letting you see the real her, not the curated version, not the achiever, the planner, the giver, the nurturer, but the self that wants nothing more than to be accepted without needing to impress. And you're showing her that you're not just attracted to who she tries to be, but to who she is when she's not trying at all. This is the heartbeat of intimacy, the raw, unfiltered humanness beneath the polish. And if you can meet her there, if you can love her in that quiet, unguarded state, you won't just spark desire. You will ignite devotion, because women like men are tired of pretending, tired of seduction games, tired of being wanted only in curated lighting and ideal conditions. What we long for is belonging, to be met not just with passion, but with presence. So when you ask her when she feels most like herself, what you're really saying is, I want to know the woman behind the walls. I want to see the light behind your eyes when no one else is watching. I want to fall in love with your realness, because that is what makes you radiant. And now, my love, you're ready for the final question. It's not flashy. It doesn't sound poetic at first, but its impact is undeniable. What's something you wish more people asked you about? This one pierces. Not because it's provocative, but because it reveals the quiet H inside all of us. The need to be noticed for who we are, not just what we provide. You're asking her what part of you has been overlooked, what beauty lies dormant simply because no one thought to ask. She may pause. Her voice may tremble, not because she's sad, but because something long buried is finally being brought into the light. She might say, I wish people asked me what makes me feel free. Or, I wish someone asked me what I'm most proud of that no one sees. Or maybe even, I wish someone asked me what I gave up just to keep everything from falling apart. This is not small talk. This is soul talk. And when you go here, gently, reverently, you become unforgettable. You see, most men try to be memorable by standing out, by doing more, saying more, performing harder. But the most memorable men, the ones who live in a woman's bones long after she walks away, they ask, they listen, they witness the hidden parts of her and ask nothing in return. That's when she desires you, not just sexually, but deeply. Primarily, soulfully, because now her attraction to you is not about your looks, not your status, not your charm. It's about how she feels in your presence. And when a woman feels home in your presence, her body follows, her passion flows, her softness awakens, her barriers drop, because she's not trying to earn your love, she's experiencing it. So let's take a breath. These 7 questions are not scripts. They are mirrors. They don't manipulate, they illuminate. They reveal the kind of man you are. The kind of man who doesn't just want a woman's body, but her truth, her chaos, her softness, her past, her possibility. And she knows, oh, she knows, she feels the difference. When she speaks and you don't interrupt, when she shares and you don't advise, when she reveals and you don't retreat, that's when desire ignites, not as a performance, but as a pulse. You've just learned something most men never will, that the path to a woman's heart isn't carved with charm or control. It's opened with curiosity, safety, and soul. And from here, the question isn't whether she'll want you. The real question is, are you ready for the kind of woman who shows up when she's fully seen? When a woman feels safe to open, to share, to be curious again about her own longing, her own softness, her own inner wildness. Something shifts in her, and often for the first time in a very long time, she begins to return to herself. Not for you, not for anyone, but because you created the atmosphere that allowed her to feel unrushed, unjudged, and unrehearsed. You didn't just spark attraction, you became the echo of something sacred she'd forgotten. That she doesn't need to be perfect to be wanted. She doesn't need to be easy to be loved. She doesn't need to hold everything together in order to be met fully, wholly, and without fear. And here you are. You're no longer the man who tries to impress. You're the man who asks, who listens, who sees, not just what is pleasing, but what is real. Now let me tell you something you may have forgotten. Women don't crave power. They crave presence. They crave the presence of a man who doesn't need to dominate the room because his eyes already hold galaxies of understanding. They crave the kind of man who can hold their silence without shrinking, who can sit in the awkwardness of emotion and not rush to escape it, who can look at them and not just see what's desirable, but what's divine. And that man can be you. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need to be smooth. You don't need to know all the answers. But you do need to care enough to ask the right questions. Because when you ask her, what makes you feel beautiful? When do you feel desired? What do you miss? What scares you about being seen? What kind of love are you afraid to ask for? When do you feel most like yourself? And what do you wish more people asked you about? What you're really saying is, I am here, I want to know you, not as a fantasy, not as a checklist, not as a conquest, but as a woman, in all your complexity, in your strength and your vulnerability, in your fire and your softness, in your longing and your joy. And that, my dear friend, is when she truly begins to want you, not because she needs you, but because you've met her where it matters. And if you're still wondering, will she respond? Will she open up? Will this really work? Let me ask you a different question. What if it's not about whether she responds? What if it's about who you become when you choose to lead with depth instead of dominance? When you choose to seek understanding over validation? When you stop trying to win her and start trying to know her? That's where transformation happens. And whether it leads to romance or reignites your relationship, or simply brings more intimacy into your conversations, you will have become something very rare in today's world. You will have become safe. And safe does not mean boring. Safe does not mean weak. Safe means powerful without being dangerous. It means passionate without being possessive. It means curious without needing to conquer. A woman who feels safer will become electric, erotic, emotionally alive, because desire does not bloom in pressure, it blooms in freedom. So ask her, not with performance but with presence, not with fear but with genuine wonder. And if you're sitting there thinking, Esther, what if I get it wrong? What if she doesn't open up? What if I fumble? Then I'll say this: getting it wrong is not what breaks intimacy. What breaks it is not showing up at all. You don't need to ask perfectly. You just need to ask with your heart. And when she senses that you care more about her than about getting it right, you'll notice something in her body, a softening, a sigh, a smile that says finally, because in a world where everyone wants to be impressive, you chose to be present, and that is irresistible. If this touched something inside you, if you felt even a flicker of truth or recognition, I want to invite you to share in the comments. Tell me what you heard, what question landed for you, or maybe the one you're now ready to ask. Let this be your practice, your experiment, your next conversation. Don't overthink it. Just begin. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's lost in the noise, someone who's tired of guessing what women want, send this to him. Share it. Because when we begin to ask better questions, we begin to build better love. And that's what we're here for, isn't it? To love better, to live deeper, to remember that underneath the noise of gender roles and modern dating, there are two people simply longing to be seen. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, not just to me, but to her. If this resonated, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and join this growing space where men and women meet not as roles, but as humans. Here's to the spark that starts with a question and never stops growing. Until next time, be curious, be kind, and never stop asking what makes love worth wanting.